Hey, welcome to another one of our shows here, our Humpday Hangout. Fire Engineering's every Wednesday doing some great programs here. Ours is Issues and Challenges in Today's Fire Service. I'm Chief Rick Lasky, and I'll be joined shortly. He's on a conference call right now with everything going on with my good buddy, my good buddy and co-host, Lewisville Assistant Chief Terry McGrath. And we've got another great one for you today with a very special group of people. This particular group, and I can say this from the bottom of my heart, are very special to Terry and I, and we'll talk about that a little bit as to why. Just a reminder, if you have any questions, head over to Twitter and send them our way. Just make sure you add hashtag FE Talk for Fire Engineering Talk. And in light of this week being National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week, Terry and I thought it'd be a great topic for today's show. And the topic we chose was a discussion with those behind the console. We're talking all things dispatch, and again, to I've always called it the nerve center. I'll talk in a couple of minutes about just my love for dispatch, but we've got some great folks join us today. First off, we've got Kelly Hayney. Kelly's the communications manager from Grapevine, Texas, for police and fire there. Kelly's been doing it for 26 years. Next, we've got Angela Sherrod from Lewisville Police and Fire. She's a public safety dispatch coordinator, and Angela has 25 years. And then we have Felicity Frankland. Felicity has 14 years in dispatch, and she's a dispatcher. She's a communication officer 2, which is like the equivalent, I think, to like a corporal, if you will, in Denton County, with the Denton County Sheriff's Office, all again from Texas. But welcome, ladies. Everybody's muted. So, hey, what I wanted to do before as everybody's unmuting here, before we get going here, is send and I know this will come from Angela, Felicity, and Kelly as well, and I know from Terry we talked about it. But before we get started, we want to send a very special thank you to all those right now standing at post for us, all those and everybody in our law enforcement family, the fire service, emergency management. We've been forgetting about them. EMS, and especially to our nurses, doctors, and everyone at the medical facilities. Thank you, and God bless you for everything you're doing right now. But so Angela, Felicity, and Kelly, I know some of you have heard this, but I have to tell, my love for dispatch started right here. Okay. I was in 5th grade in Mrs. Humphrey's class, okay, at 7th Avenue School in the South Side of Chicago. Now, Mrs. Humphrey is one of my favorite teachers. She looked like the crypt keeper, but she was really just a great person. And I never got to tell her like most people, what she meant to me. But in 5th grade, I got sent to the principal's office, not because I got in a fight, not because I was cheating on a test or just like that, because I brought this one right here. I brought the first ever realistic Radio Shack pocket 4-channel crystal scanner so I could listen to police and fire. Wow. And I had it inside my desk, the metal desk with the wood lid. And it's like quiet time. And all of a sudden from my desk, you hear, and she's like, what is it? And I couldn't. So they call my dad, and my dad goes, what did he do? Did he get in a fight? She goes, no. Did he do what? He brought this radio. Oh, tell him to turn it off. Anyway. So that was that. It started for me there. And then I was an explorer when I was 14 and 15, police explorer. And I went to work in Willow Springs on the South Side of Chicago. And I thought it was as a cadet. And it was an auxiliary patrolman a week after my 16th birthday. And they're teaching me how to dispatch on Tuesday. Tommy Junis, from 4 to 10, taught me how to dispatch. I showed up Friday night, and the dispatcher called in sick. And Lieutenant Jerry Schultz said, well, you're it, kid. We got nobody. I go, I'm only 16 years old, and I've never done this before. He goes, let me show you I don't know if you remember the really old teletypes where you had to do like LZV5 and all with the, he showed me how to run a license plate driver's license. Okay, that's it. I swear to God, I was so nervous. I got a nosebleed. And if it wasn't for Maureen and Marianne at Hickory Hills, the first call I dispatched was a fight. And I said, and he's being very obnoxious. Till this day, Maureen still harasses me on Facebook while saying obnoxious. But anyway, it goes way back for me when it comes to my love for dispatch. And there's Chief McGrath. Terry, hey, welcome, buddy.
Hey, how are y'all doing? Sorry about that. This is the third one in like the last hour and 15 minutes. So.
Wow. Well, there's nothing going out there in the world, so I don't know why, But
Well, 1.5 of them took place in my car while I was driving around, but we'll share that with the general public.
You're doing a great job.
Let's do this real quick before we get into a couple of our topics here. Angela, what, and I always like to ask folks how they got into what they were doing, because we have 3 special guests who love what they do and are incredible at what they do. When it comes to the whole dispatch center, the whole spectrum of it, not just sitting on a council, but teaching, training, hiring, all that different stuff. Angela, how'd you get into it? What led you down that path?
Well, I was back in California working for the Department of Motor Vehicles, and I worked for the area chief commander, and it was such a boring job. And just pushing papers, filing papers in court, and filling out subpoenas. And I was just bored. And I came across an ad for a 911 dispatcher, and I was like, that sounds pretty interesting. And I went down and applied, and we were underneath City Hall. There was a parking garage under City Hall. Dispatch was underneath the parking garage. And I was like, this is so secure. So I felt like really special, and nobody could get to me. I was protected. I was so excited. And then they said there was this long tunnel, and they said this is where we would take the president if he ever came to LAX and something happened, they would bring him here. And I thought, wow, that's cool. But then I thought, well, no, because then we will be under attack. So, but it turned out to be pretty well. I was excited. I enjoyed the job, except for when there was an earthquake.
Yeah, there you go. Because if it's not wildland fires for my buddies out there, it's earthquakes, or then the mudslides, and it's just,
I remember hiding underneath my console when there was an earthquake, and they're like, why? And I said, well, why not? They said, there's a parking garage with cars on top of us. And above that, there's like this 20-story building. I thought, you're right. The desk won't save me.
Hey, I want to know how Angela passed a test to get in the DMV. You have the nicest personality. You're the sweetest, accommodating, most helpful person, and there's no way you fit that profile.
I was young. I was young.
That's perfect. Felicity, we'll go next. I see you on the screen. Felicity, how did you get into it?
I was fresh out of college, and I had just moved here on a whim and needed a job, and decided I worked for the city in Colorado where I came from. And my dad said, find a city job. They always keep people. So I just looked and said, I'm going to apply for anything and everything. And so I applied for detention first, jail detention, and dispatch at the same time, and got hired in detention first, and then went into dispatch. And so it kind of just sucked me in. It wasn't completely on purpose. And then Kelly, and Angela both, just sucked me in, made me love it. And so here I am 14 years later.
And it does. And it does. First of all, it takes someone very special to do what you guys do, but it's very addicting for those that can actually handle the stress. And we'll talk about that later. There's an addiction to dispatch centers, and it is a very cliquey, very special group of people that you talk about a bonding and a family. We always talk about on the firefighter side, on the police officer side, but oh my God, dispatch. I do a lot of programs for the NINA groups and all that. Shout out to NINA.
Absolutely.
And oh my God, first of all, they're absolutely crazy. They're the craziest people I ever met in my life. Okay. But you're right. Once you're in, you're in. Kelly, how did you get started?
Well, I kind of fell into it. My roommate got hired first out of a group of 5, and one of those 5 didn't make it through training, and she was like, you've got to apply. You would love it. And I was young, and I even didn't know any better. And I was terrified. I got hired. I was terrified probably for the first 2 years. And then I was like, oh, I can do this. I love it.
Well, and like I said, you would never know it. And we've talked about this. Terry and I have talked about this on other shows. And especially when I'll do like a bunch of classes that we teach, but we talk about Maydays and firefighter rescues. There's so many times I bring up what a very vitally important role dispatch plays in that, and that there are dispatchers that have actually saved firefighters' lives, because the incident commander, with everything going on, whether they're sitting in a command car or they're out on the street, whatever, missed something. And I have the tapes that I can play where it's like, it's like dispatch command, you have a Mayday, or dispatch command, you have that. And just where the one time that firefighter who's lost on fire, they're not in there laying there going, oh, someone come and get me. Usually there's a lot of stuff going on. a lot of things, it's not like the training tower. And that may be the only time you hear that call for help. And there's been so many times where dispatch, and I'll say it, has saved the life of a firefighter when it came to doing that. So anyway, it's incredible, absolutely incredible what you guys do. And I'll say this, and Terry knows this: if you want to piss me off, mess with dispatch. And you guys know this. I remember when I first got there, we'd put an extra ambulance on at 5s at the time during one of the holidays, and it was hot, and they got pretty snippy with dispatch. And Kelly, you've heard me tell this story before. You may be working, or Angela, and they were just, I was like out of my mind at how rude they were on the radio. And they, Medic 5's back in the firehouse, and I just got on the radio. I waited about a minute. I said, Medic 5 for Chief 1. I said, pick up the phone. It's me. And they didn't answer the phone by saying Lewisville Firehouse 5, firefighter, paramedic McGrath. They answered the phone by saying, Chief, I'm sorry. I said, oh, no. You don't have to say that to me. There's another group. In fact, Bluebell ice cream goes a long way. And you need to put butts in the ambulance, and you need to go to dispatch and mend some fences. And Kelly, when you were on here a while ago, several years ago, when you were with Denko, I told the story about Chicago PD, because I send the tapes once in a while. I think I've sent to you guys where the calmness. Oh my God, shootings, police officers down, stuff. And the calm in the whole storm is the dispatcher. It's amazing when you hear, how they take control. And a long time ago, I remember that they have the paddy wagons in Chicago at the time, and it was 771, I think, was the number. And they got really snippy a couple times with the dispatcher, so they get backed up in calls. So you heard 771, 771. They go ahead, get your pencil ready. Go ahead. All right, first you got a domestic disturbance at this. Then you got noise, and you got the music. He gave like 7 or 8 calls. So they would clear like at 45 minutes later. They go 771 clear. All right, 771, get your pencil ready. He'd give another 5 or 8 calls. The third time he did that, I swear to God, they go, office. This is 771. Go ahead. Office. They call him office. He goes, we apologize. We were out of line. We didn't mean what we said. We appreciate you. And he says, 771, thank you. 772, get your pencil ready. I was like, that was the greatest little. You see, you don't do that. You don't mess with dispatch. But let's throw this to all three of you. Right now with the coronavirus going on and everything, and I've heard a lot of dispatchers tell me it's the calm before the storm, if you will. I know a lot of people are probably calling you because they're scared, they have questions, but I know the call volume may be a little bit down. I don't know, maybe it's not, but a lot of places I've talked to, because like out here, they're not running the misdemeanors into the jail and different things like that, trying to keep the contact down. They're out there enforcing the law. They're catching bad guys, but trying to be careful. How are things going with all this? Have you seen it slow, or is it the same, or what's going on?
I think for us here, it is slow. What's really dropped off is a lot of the officer initiated contact. We're trying to minimize our contact with public as much as possible. But the flip side of that is the phone calls. So we're still getting phone calls. We're about 100 calls down per day for our agency here, which is a significant drop, but most of our calls that we're challenged with are pretty much all COVID related. What can people do? What are the rules? What are they not supposed to do? Or they're calling because they're symptomatic, they're sick. So those are the kinds of shift of operations that we've had here.
Well, and before I ask Angela and Felicity, I'll throw this maybe to Angela, because all three of your agencies are good size agencies, because I want to bring up a little bit later, there's places out there with one dispatcher working per shift, smaller departments that have their challenges. But, and I'll throw this to Angela, how long did it take for the support that you need at dispatch? Like, here's a whole new thing. You're always dealing with something new. Just like you said, Kelly, it's like people are calling going, they're asking questions and they're expecting answers, right? You're always the catch-all. What's the weather? Why is my pizza not here? And I've got someone shooting at me, that kind of, it's everything from all the, did it take a little while? Like it has so in the fire side and on the street side with patrol officers, to get the information to the nerve center that you can handle those calls? I'll throw that to Angela.
Didn't take us long at all. I had already started reading a lot of information from APCO for disasters such as this, if it had gotten to that. So I was pretty prepared, had a list of old dispatchers I was ready to call back to come to the center. So I was working on a game plan when it actually did hit. And I was fortunate enough with our chief and my boss to really put some measurements in place. They set up a phone bank center to take on all of those phone calls. So instead of us having to send employees home, we were able to bring them back to run a phone center. So they are taking on all the COVID questions. So dispatch is not being inundated with calls about or questions about COVID, what to do, what businesses should open. We only handle the calls where somebody is violating it. And we have officers that are in dispatch right now that can take on some of those calls. So it doesn't take away from the dispatcher working on other calls that we should, medical calls. We saw a decrease in a lot of calls. We get a lot of fights still because too many people at home. But other than that, everything else has decreased. We have probably more calls, less calls, but the medical calls take longer because we're asking all the COVID questions. So that took the pressure off of us and allowed us to be able to properly assess each call. So because the fire department, I think Spinuzzi talked about that last month, put some measurements in place with a special medic that would go out on those particular calls. So that really helped us out a lot.
Well, in all three of your organizations, Terry, you and I have talked about this, are very progressive. You know, Grapevine,
Mhm.
Denton County, Lewisville, very progressive organizations. Now, it's easy when you work somewhere. You know, we always take things for granted. Always like, I can't believe, you know, and then all you have to do is stop at another dispatch center and go, oh my God, I'm so glad I work where I'm at. You know, and they don't, because they don't, we said earlier before we went live, they don't have the support. You know, if it wasn't for groups, the APCO groups for Nina, you know,
Yes.
I follow Nina, the information they're putting out
Yes.
and the conferences and the webcasts and the information, like sometimes hourly, again, to the nerve center, you know, because I talked to a couple that were kind of like, they haven't said nothing to us yet. We don't have an operational plan. And I'm like, well, and Terry, how many times we talked about it? It's always about leadership, right, T? It's always about leadership and about having people that either supervisors or bosses that care enough to see it coming before, you know, before it hits, right, T?
Well, yeah, and I mean, it's always easy to brag on Lewisville, but you know and this is probably as an important event as any, that there is great constant communication between the police department, the fire department,
Mhm.
and in Lewisville, communications falls under the police department. But I mean, we have unfettered access to their management team. We have almost unfettered access into the communication center.
Yes.
But and then beyond that, with city management, and so I think that there is a lot to be said, and to your point, Chief, on the leadership side, but also to be able to have some really solid communications between City Hall, but then police and fire, and so you know there's been one instance since this started back mid-March that you know I was made aware of a small hiccup and a problem they were having in the jail, and it was simply because we didn't communicate enough with the jail, so they weren't 100% up to speed with what we were doing with EMS and patients. We weren't 100% up to speed with what they were doing as far as intake of new inmates and how they were adjusting their procedures. So that was a phone call, and within an hour, there's 5 of us on a conference call, and within 30 minutes of that, it's solved. The emails went out, problems are fixed, and everybody's on the same page. And I can't tell you again, because this has been such a protracted and drawn out event, that I really feel like we are on top of things, at least in our jurisdiction. I know Grapevine is because I talk to Daryl regularly, and of course, Denton County and their emergency services are in most of the calls that we're having. But the level of communication and the level of support and kind of that mutual respect for everybody and that's paid huge dividends for this.
Well, and it's time to check your ego at the door, right? Check your ego at the door when it comes to handling incidents, because, I always used to say, don't confuse what I do on the radio or how I run a fire. Don't confuse confidence for cockiness. But there's a time in dispatch, in the dispatch centers, to be firm, to be concise and clear. And like I said, I can play the tapes where a Chicago dispatch during the gas explosions way back when they had 30 something fires going on, he told everybody, he just told everybody just calm down. I mean, had to tell people to shut up on the radio just to push the reset button, because this isn't about delivering pizzas. No disrespect. We're talking about people's lives, and cops that could get shot and firefighters that get burned up. And there's a time where you got to tell a firefighter that tends to talk a little bit too much to be quiet on the radio. So there's a time, like I said, that controlling mechanism for dispatch, egos have to be thrown out, especially something like this. Felicity, what at Denton County, and I guess we could throw this to Angela and Kelly as well. What have you guys do anything differently? I know in some places that it's kind of hard. I mean, social distancing. A lot of dispatch centers, you already had that because with the whole council and everything, you were already kind of set up, but you're also in close quarters though too. I know everybody's trying to clean things, and I'll throw this to Felicity first, and Kelly and Angela jump in there. Is there anything you guys are doing different to take care of your dispatchers and dispatch center during this?
We're checking everybody's temperatures. We are very just proactive to just how they're feeling, first and foremost. In addition to all of this, it's allergy season, which has a lot of the same symptoms in the very beginning part of just not feeling good and all the rest of it. So, we're just very cognizant. I mean, you can't change. We still have to switch out shifts, and we still have to switch out people. So it's just that maneuvering of you sort of joke about it because that's just how we cope. But are we social distancing? And our consoles, we have a brand new center, so our consoles are farther apart, which is just been kind of fallen into the situation of perfect timing and perfect situation for us. So we don't have a lot of that, but for us, we're already kind of secluded. We don't have a lot of traffic in and out from outside. So we're just being a team and just being very cognizant of each other and how each other's are feeling and our stress and all the rest of it.
Well, again, you mentioned stress. We'll talk about that too later. But right now, there's a lot of that going on with everything. Angela, Kelly, are you guys doing anything different than what Felicity said, or just trying to take care of each other and watch out after each other?
Pretty much the same. We're minimizing traffic in and out of the center. If you have business there, you pretty much walk by my office first, and I'll make sure it's something that needs to go in. We don't even have the janitorial staff coming into the center anymore. We do our own trash, take it and put it in the hallway, and they'll pick it up. We keep clean. Facilities comes by twice a day, clean us down. We're also doing the temperatures as well. City management has set up for everybody to make sure you take your temperature before you leave your house. And if you have a fever, just stay home. Just stay home. They, have the COVID leave set up for us, so it makes it a lot easier for people to be able to stay home.
Hey, I saw the association drop some bundt cakes off today, and
They did.
They made it into the center.
We took Whitley through the back door.
I got you.
We were not going to turn down bundt cakes.
Hey, Kelly, do we still have you?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you.
I don't know what happened to my screen there.
You look drunk, Kelly.
You're asleep.
Got my eyes closed. I promise I'm not sleeping.
Well, right now the challenge has been, especially with this format, there's so many people use it every day for businesses and family that there's been some issues. But Kelly, are you guys doing anything different or same stuff?
We're pretty much doing the same stuff. Our building here, we actually check temps before we enter the building. We've got a sanitation table set up also right as we enter the building, and then we're doing mid-shift temperature checks. And again, like Felicity said, just being cognizant of how people are feeling, checking on our people, making sure everybody's doing good, not just physically, but, how is everybody doing emotionally?
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. But
hey, I wanted to ask, because typically there's turnover in those centers. I mean, I know Lewisville has a fair amount of turnover. I don't know what the situation is at Denton County or Grapevine, but we had hired three people that were basically brand new. I mean, this is like their first month. They're 21 years old. This is what they've dreamed of doing. And then you immediately show up to social distancing, don't talk to anybody, So every time I see them, I always just kind of, tell them, hey, this is a little strange. This isn't probably what you envisioned when you started working here. But I was kind of curious if you've got any new people there, people that are in training, because I mean, it's not just your work world, your entire world is everyone's world is flipped upside down. But I was just kind of curious if you've got those people that this entire operation at 911 or being a dispatcher is new, and you're in training, especially those that are in training, like you literally showed up from one day to the next and went, okay, hey, this is a really, really strange operational issue that we're dealing with. And of course the information changes, daily, if not every hour. But are you guys finding yourself in that situation?
We have a couple of new ones that came right at this time, and it's been funny because I kind of introduce it like, well, welcome to dispatch, because at any given time it can change, and we are presented with all array of things, and this is just one more thing of, we keep using the word, this is fluid. We don't really know what to expect. We don't really know what's going to come. We don't really know the changes or the new restrictions or or they're going to lift some restrictions or they're going to do this. And we just have to roll with it. And what stranger way, we have to roll with everything. I mean, you can get fires to thefts to disturbances to murders so it's funny that, yes, this is very strange for us, even seasoned, but it's not strange for dispatch to just roll with it. And so it's just one of those things. All of our guys have taken it with, great stride. So
I don't know about you, Felicity, but for us, it's, I think, more difficult for our trainers because they are used to, getting right up under them and, getting close and training. Kelly, she trained me. Kelly was so motherly, and she, would sit right there with you and didn't let you go, and it's different for us because I'm having to remind them 6-foot rule. I know, but it's hard for me to talk from all the way over here. And I'm like, I understand. So that's been the most difficult part, is training someone. So it's for the trainers. The trainees, they have no clue what's the norm and what's not norm. They're just excited to have a job. So we let them continue with their excitement, and hopefully it'll carry them through the end of this,
Yes, absolutely.
Well, it's funny. A long time ago, there was the Paxton Hotel fire in Chicago, and I think they made 127 rescues via ladders and 29 fatalities. And I remember Father Tom LaCrone, the chaplain, went to zoom in on one of the brand new firefighters on my buddy Ray Hoff's on truck 10, Tower 10. It was his first day of the job, and he was all worried because and he went up to him, he says, how are you doing? And all this is Father Tom, the chaplain. And the kid goes, you mean they're not all like this? He had no idea that wasn't the norm. So sometimes maybe it's not that, it's like, oh, this must be what it's like, but well, let me ask you, we'll kind of shift gears here a little bit away from the coronavirus, but a lot of the people watching this, a lot of our firefighters, I thought one of the greatest things we did when Melinda, when she was in HR, now she's a city manager, let us use light duty for police and fire by allowing us to have our firefighters and police officers at rehab. And if they want to save their sick time, they could work in dispatch. And what a huge fan and proponent I've always been of dispatchers riding along with police and fire, and firefighters going over to, hey, T, could you help Kelly out? She just sent the message there. With dispatchers riding out on the fireside, and then with our firefighters going up to dispatch. And I'll never forget when Kazzy Finley was in Lewisville, he was up there for a while. Remember, Angela, with his knee.
Kazzy.
Yes.
Oh my God. And he was up there for a couple months. And I remember his first day back at the firehouse at Threes. I stopped by for coffee, and the guys are all coming back in after checking the rigs, and he's sitting down and he's eating oatmeal, I think it is. And everybody's talking, and it was his first day back, and that sound you make when you throw a metal spoon into a bowl, all of a sudden, pachink, he threw it. He goes, look, I'm going to tell every one of you right now, if anybody ever gives dispatch a hard time again, I will whoop your ass. You have no idea what goes on up there. You have no idea the stress. And he went on. And when he got done, he got up and walked away. And I went, well, there you go, guys. You know, it was just, it was such an eye opener. And then I don't know if Kelly's back with us, but Kel, when you were
here audibly,
there you are. When you were riding out with us the one time, and they set the tones off, and you're out on the apparatus floor, and you go,
yes.
How do they hear what the hell we're saying? I go, so bringing everybody together like that is so important to be able to understand both sides of the fence, if you will. I think, it allows the firefighters to slow down with their radio traffic when they know dispatch is getting bombarded. It allows, and I think sometimes it's the inexperienced ones that don't pay attention and, don't realize, because I've been in there where I've watched, here's my favorite one. This is my favorite one. Dispatch will they'll dispatch an engine and ambulance to a domestic or a person with a knife call. All right. They'll set an engine through, and the engine will go around, and the captain on the radio go, engine 3's en route. Lewisville, they have PD en route. And I remember being there. Well, one of your dispatchers, Stan Stedman, one of my favorites, was yelling at the council. And I remember one time I was up there, and I actually leaned over and I keyed up on the radio, and I said, "Negative, you're going to have to handle this one on your own." And I'm like, is that not the stupidest question in the world? Do you have PD? Is PD en route? I mean, are you kidding me? But I think that bringing everybody together helps with that so much. Let me ask you guys this, Angela and Kelly, and now we got you back. What does it take, though, to become a telecommunicator, a dispatcher these days, and to stay certified? Because it's not like it was in the old days. There's so much that goes into that position that a lot of our firefighters and police officers don't even know about.
It is. It's much different now. The technical aspect is tremendous. Back in the day, it was just a phone and just a radio. Mm-hmm. And now we sit in front of, 6 to 8 monitors and monitors hanging from the ceiling. And the multitasking is absolutely to the extreme, which isn't difficult for some of the people coming in, but being able to put it all together and have the mentality to be able to work in this environment is really key.
Well, and Angela, recruitment and retention wise, especially in your position, it's always been a challenge, and I used to say, we recruit dispatchers kind of wrong, because I think the appeal, and I used to say this, you can't put an ad in the newspaper or on a website and go, come be, I used to say, and I've said this to people, have you ever thought about the fact that a dispatcher can breathe life back into a baby on a telephone? And nowadays, a young person will look and go, is that an app on my phone? I go, no, they can actually breathe life back into a baby on a telephone. And now let me explain how. And all of a sudden, it's going after the audience of candidates that want to be part of something special, like what you guys do, that want to make it, this isn't just something mundane. Yeah, I'm just going there, can't show up, go through, it's always different. It's always challenging. There's peaks, there's valleys. I mean, Angela, what are the challenges you're seeing with recruitment and retention today?
Having them being able to put it all together. We have so many people that apply for this job, but they bomb out in the background phase because of drugs, basically. Depending on the age group, that 25 age group, if they've tried it anywhere from the day they graduated from high school up until about 25 years old, they have to wait. And so that's the biggest thing that we're finding, or they're not honest. They are afraid to tell us about a time when something happened that would not have kicked them out of the background process, but because they did not tell us the truth, it kicks them out of the background process. So it's really education, getting the word out, using social media platforms, which we're now doing, and highlighting the dispatchers. So since I've been in here, I keep sending my media coordinator more information about my dispatchers to highlight them, showing their face, to go in these newsletters, to go on social media, so people can see us, see that we are real people, and hey, maybe I can do that.
Well, and I think it's more than just every time we have an incident, a scenario like this, the coronavirus, now you see people putting pictures. It's like we go to war or something bad happens, we hang our flags out. I think, like you said, we need to be doing that on a more routine
Constantly.
basis. Yeah, instead of just, well, now there's a bunch of stuff. Let's put a lot of pictures of dispatch, or like they're doing with nurses and doctors. Well, where were these before? You know,
Right.
and that's my thing is I think there's those challenges, and again, there's just so many people that come into it thinking, well, yeah, I can answer the telephone. Yeah, they'll tell you, and I'm like, oh my God, you have no idea what goes on in that center. But if you want something, if you want a job, if you want a profession that will challenge you and something when you go home, you may be mentally and physically exhausted, but you have reached out to so many people's lives that then go
Yes.
work at dispatch, right? I mean, just
But what's really amazing to watch, Chief, and it's fun to listen to on our side of the radio. But like anywhere, you have people that show up and they want to work at their career, and people that show up and just want to work at their job. But the people, like, if I jot down and all the things that you think are going on in dispatch, I mean, you're an incident commander, you are a detective, you are a administrative assistant, you are a mother, a teacher, a parent, all these things because of all the different hats that you wear. But to watch one of those people that has embraced this profession or this career, the ones that go in there and start going through RMS and tying things together, and when you hear them come back and tell officers, or they're actually doing that extra work on their end to come back and provide additional information to whether it be police or fire, and that part of it, we've got some dispatchers in Lewisville that they are all over our GIS layers. So when they're sending us to structure fires, they're telling us where the hydrants are. It's that, it's finding that person that really doesn't show up to say, I'm going to answer calls today, and I'm going to read the screen and give the information out, and I'm going to push the button when they get there and those sort of things. But those people that are actively working that console, and what a huge impact that has on every single call that's mitigated out there.
well, and everybody starts somewhere. Felicity, I was interim in Trophy Club. I always tell the story. They told me how few fires they have, and we had 6 structure fires with that one storm, and 4 of them were legit, and
Yes.
2 of them went 3 and 4 bells, alarms. And I pull up at mine. I got a 5,000 square foot home with fire through the roof, and I've got nobody.
Yeah.
I've got nobody, and we only had one fire ground channel set up, and I'm going, what the. And I remember, I think you told one of one of the newer dispatchers, just listen to what he says and just give him what he asks him
Yeah.
for.
Yeah, we've exhausted everything else. We're now just going to take his command, because and that's exactly what it is. And Terry, I know when you were talking just now, what struck me the night that the tornado ripped through Lewisville, and we had all of those alarms, and it had completely fallen apart. And I can just remember, I was like, that's it. I'm done toning. I'm just going to dispatch them like cops. So here we go. Engine, because everybody was everywhere.
Mhm.
And it just is one of those things. It's a profession that is bigger than yourself. And I tell that it's a bigger picture, and you have to think bigger picture, and you have to think where they're coming from. And that's why, I encourage our people to get out, go see where the fire stations are, because that tells you where they're going to get on the highway. And sometimes it's going to go against the grain because it's the highway, and you can't split the maps and the GIS this and that. It's just a bigger picture of putting it together and pulling resources from wherever. And I love to watch it work. And I know that you both, and all 4 of you, have instilled that passion to the calling of doing this, because it's so much bigger than ourselves. And if you're going to be for yourself, you won't last long. You just won't.
Well, and Angela, I know it's always a challenge, because I mentioned and Kelly earlier when riding out on the fireside.
Mhm.
I know my wife Jamie, when she went out row with some of her deputies for the first, I said, you got to get out there, and they took her all. And she showed up this one place, this one bar. She goes, oh, this is the OK Corral, whatever it's called. Oh, this is where and it just kind of paints just a more dramatic picture where you can actually, you can see them actually in your head doing what they're doing and where they're at. That's kind of, like I said, how important it is to get the firefighters into dispatch, to have the dispatchers to those agencies that are listening to us. I know it's hard, but to get them out there at least one time to ride out and just check things out, right?
Yes, it plays a huge part to look at the apparatus, see what it looks like, the headset that they put on their ears and how everything is so muffled and the roar of the engine is so loud. And so you can't be as quiet as a mouse and not speak up. They need to be able to hear you. And so they get to hear that side of it as well. And they also get to hear what complications or obstacles are out there on the fire side. So don't get mad if they didn't hear you or need you to repeat an apartment number. You have a better understanding of why it happened that way. So I think it works both ways. We just had Captain Clark up here, Brandon Clark. He was injured. He was just terrified at first when he first showed up, and we got him prepared in a day and he rocked it after that, and we were ready to break his leg or something just so he could stay a little bit longer with us. We always love to have firemen up here. They help us out so well, and it's just such a good mesh. Right now, I have a police officer and they pretty much will work the phones, but ask them to work that radio channel, they're like, oh, no, nope, not us. And then the firemen, they come up, they work the radio channel. It's like, do you want to answer the phone? No, that's okay. You guys take that. So it's a two-way street. It's kind of fun, but it's good to see both sides. And every single one walks out that door and say, I will never forget what it's like. And they say, I only had to work the radio. I didn't have to work any other channels. I didn't have to answer phones, warrants, or anything else that you guys are dealing with. All I did was the radio, and they went home full that day.
And so many of them are up there when it's, I'll say, kind of a normal day for you guys.
Yes.
And they miss those, oh my God, kind of moments where it's just, it's like somebody threw a hand grenade in there with everything going on. Kelly, talk to us about the training opportunities for telecommunicators out there. I'm going up again, Oakland Community College in Auburn Hills outside Detroit. I'm going to be there doing my dispatch class, Making a Difference. I'll be able to go up there a couple times for them at the police academy. And I love being able to go out and spend time with my dispatchers. But Kelly, talk about the different training opportunities. I know, all the certifications, but where does someone, where do you find them?
Well, we're very fortunate, and the training has come a long way in the last 20 years. Most of the 911 districts are geared towards telecommunicators. That's what they do. That's all they do. That's their sole focus. And much of the training comes from there. We do have outside contractors that travel, much like yourself, that focus strictly on the telecommunicators. So the training is out there. The important thing is does your department support outside training? That's key for a lot of people. A lot of departments don't have the budget to send their people outside to training. And that's unfortunate, but I'm a firm believer in getting people outside the comm center and get them out there with other departments for face-to-face training. I think that's important.
Well, and how Terry and I and Daryl before that, we always tried. I was a big believer in just trying to, I'd send someone over to dispatch, let's do a class, let's do an hour class on dive operations, or let's do this. And then it first started with the PowerPoints. And nowadays I know a lot of dispatch centers where someone on law enforcement, someone on the fire side, and someone in dispatch will do a YouTube video. So if you can't make it up there per se, there's a YouTube video on it's wildfire season coming up, and this is what blah 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 blah, and everybody's got a few minutes somewhere to sit down and watch a quick video on how to do something, and it's such a great tool now. T, go ahead. You got something?
Well, I was just going to add that we try to do a good job with if they hire someone new, they bring them in, and so they come over, they give them a tour. We always try to take them out on the boat, for example, because that lake's a completely different animal. And the challenges it takes to locate somebody that's on a lake, trying to give communications, they say, well, what can you see? Well, I can see a tree. All right, well, that doesn't narrow it down very much. But
No.
So we do a lot of that. But I think where we still struggle, and I say we, certainly with our organization, is keeping communications in the loop as we make changes. So operationally, we might put something in service, take something out of service. we're running something different. We oftentimes fail to pass that on to communications. So it is the communications, the bane of everything, and it is. Angela's shaking her head because she's being polite. She's got that DMV face on, but I know for a fact they get consistently frustrated because we will make a wholesale swing at something, and we're rocking along thinking we've just, we're doing great and delivering the best service possible, and we left them out of the loop. And then we act like it's, well, yeah, I mean, you didn't know that we had a special medicine service for COVID patients and things like that. So, and that's something that I think every organization needs to remember, is that when you're located in the basement under the 20-story building beneath the cars, those people need to know what's going on.
Well, and I mentioned Nina, and for some of our folks that may not be familiar, our viewers watching this now later on when this is recorded, that's the National Emergency Number Association. Again, we're talking, and they tout it, and I love it. They're the only professional organization solely focused on 911 policy, technology, operations, and education issues. And I didn't want to move forward. We talked about this before we went live without giving a little shout out to my friends on the Facebook page, the Nocturnal Dispatchers, Life in the Dark. If you're a dispatcher, what a great Facebook page to follow. But Terry, I want to bring something up, and I'll throw this to Felicity first. We talked about this before we went live. One of the frustrating points for me, and it couples what you just said, Terry, is we'll have a very dramatic, tragic call, on the fire or law enforcement, both sides, and we'll have the debriefing team come in and do we'll have the critical stress management team come in, and they'll do the whole thing and try to head off some PTSD issues if you can later on, and mental health. We're so much better at embracing nowadays. Where we still, and I'll just say it suck, is we forget about dispatch. We'll bring a team out, and I'll ask, gee, so how are you guys doing? Oh, we're doing good. They did a diffusing, we did debriefing, blah, blah, blah. And I'll ask, so how are your dispatchers doing? I'm sure they're doing fine. I'm like, are you sure they're doing fine? I know dispatchers. I know one that ended up quitting after a firefighter line of duty death because she knew him. I'm saying, it was one of those where just knowing that she dispatched them to that call. I think we do a horrible job, right, Angela? And I'm not saying Lewisville or Denton County or Grapevine. I'm saying as the fire service as a whole. I'll pick on the fire service side. A fire chief's forgetting, the people in dispatch, right?
I have to say
think
we're pretty lucky. I mean, they do their debriefings. They make sure we're there. We have extra teams that come in. I mean, they are fully loaded and ready. I have been brought in this past year on more things than ever before. Even when it came down to planning Chief's funeral, they included us in on everything. We were not left out, so that we were prepared on the back end. Even though we didn't really do anything, we knew what was going on, and we were prepared for the 800 or more ambulances and fire trucks that rolled through our city. So when people called and said, hey, what's going on? We can't get through the light for 30 minutes. We were able to tell them what was going on, and we had a sense of calmness because we knew. So I have to say they treat us really well in keeping us informed.
Very cool. Very cool. Yes. Kelly, you had something?
I do. I think a lot of it takes the initiative when we are forgotten, is the push from the dispatch center to step up and say, hey, we were a part of that call too, and we might need some help. You do that enough, and then eventually you start getting included.
Well, and that's the one thing I saw from the supervisors, and I say this for me selfishly in Lewisville, was they were very protective. Look, I've said it before, you don't have to love someone. You don't have to have Thanksgiving dinner with someone to care about them. I was born and raised in Southside Chicago. We just, one of my idols, Chief Al Brunasini, used to say, there's no guessing what's on Lasky's mind. And that was just, we were just very open, and we could agree to disagree. We could even have an argument, but we still loved each other. We still, cared about, there was no hate and things like that. But I saw something very special, and all three of you, obviously Angela, you're still there, and Felicity and Kelly worked in Lewisville. A very mom and dad kind of approach to taking care of your people as supervisors. and fighting for them. I saw that a lot, Angela and Felicity. I mean, very protective. I mean, it was.
Kelly was very protective.
Kelly's
Yes.
taught me to be very protective.
Yes, I am a mama bear.
Well, it goes back to what Terry said. It's all about leadership. And when you've got good bosses, good supervisors, good managers, good boss, good police and fire chiefs that know just how important dispatch is, you don't tend to forget about those people, those issues in that. How important, I'll throw this to all three of you, how important, because so many dispatch centers are nowadays, they have those as part of the emergency management center or whatever. They're so secluded. They're really, unless you see a picture on a website, the connections, the relationships that you have to have, how important are those, with your police and firefighters? I use a post when it's one of my PowerPoint presentations that, it's a dispatcher, and you three have all seen it, where I knew it was you, not because of your face, but because of your voice. And I could hear it in your voice. Dispatchers, Kelly, I remember you when we had a police officer very badly hurt on I-35. I'll never forget it because I'm out there doing my business, and I didn't think it was that big a deal to ask Care Flight, the helicopter, expedite, because they don't, it's not like I put a quarter in the ride outside the hardware store and that's just fat. They can't goose it when they need to. And I remember I remember Kelly, you saying that it kind of either got to you or you said, oh, this must be bad because Lasky's never asked for the helicopter to expedite. That being said, those relationships, how do you not get emotional, I guess? I'll ask Kelly that first.
I'm the most emotional of them all. It happens, but a good dispatcher can separate the job at the moment that needs to be done. And then it's when we unkey the mic that we can have our breakdown if we need to, because it's for sure going to happen. But this is our family. We build those relationships, whether or not we have face-to-face contact or not. It's recognizing the voice inflection, the stress in someone's voice. That's all we do, is that voice-to-voice communication. So we have that ability to recognize those things when they happen. And it's learning how to deal with that emotion. That's a special, unique aspect of dispatchers that we have, is being able to control that when it happens.
And that's huge. Like you said, controlling the emotion, and that's a learned event for a lot of people. It comes with experience. Felicity, just that particular fire I was talking about, if you and I didn't have the relationship where I knew you, I mean, there were times, I know when I was there, the year I was there, just interim, waiting to get him a new chief, I called you, go, God, thank God you were on the radio. Just, and there's just that, when you're running a job, a fire, and you hear certain voices on the radio, you go, God, I know everything's going to go good. Everything, it's almost, I don't want to say you forget things as a fire chief, as an incident commander, but you don't, we always worry, don't get me wrong, to our listeners, but you go, God, when I've got this little angel sitting on my shoulder, taking care of me in dispatch and making sure I don't miss nothing. And, because none of us are perfect, and reminding us of things and all that, it's huge. Those relationships are tremendously important, right, Felicity?
But Chief, it's one of those things, though. You have to encourage, and you have to step out and make the relationship, and to know and to learn each other, plain and simple. And it goes for police and fire. But when you learn that and you ask those questions and you keep educating yourself, you find yourself building those relationships, because then it means something. Now it's personal. I know your face. I know what you're doing out there. I know your thought process. Officer Shane Menz from Lewisville, I can remember one night he went traffic, and he, on a traffic stop, they repeat the tag twice. And on the second time he repeated it, he's paused for a half of a second in giving me that tag. And it wasn't like normal. And so immediately he unkeyed, and I sent him another unit, and he ended up getting the dog out, and it was this whole situation. And when it was all said and done, he goes, "How did you know?" And I said, "Well, you paused in your license plate." And he's like, "What?" And I said, "You just paused for a half a second." I said, "But I know you." And it's developing those relationships to make it personal, because now you know that they're fighting for you because they know you, and you're fighting for them because you know us. And it just changes that aspect of it. And just, like Kelly said, we are family, plain and simple. And we can be mad at each other, and we can be brothers and sisters, but nobody's going to mess with us either.
Well, and that's why I said, I mean, and Terry knows this, being a boss, being a leader in the leadership role, it's not about making friends, it's about keeping people alive and being respected first and liked as a bonus. And, I was brought up a certain way. You need to go out there and take care of your people. You've got an obligation, those people out there, the citizens, and to those that work within your circle to keep them alive. And being a friend later, we can, my buddy used to say it. I run a from New York City, Donnie Haid, 40 years with FDNY. Donnie says, I run a very democratic fireground. It's my way. We can kiss and make up later. We can have coffee later. If one of my firefighters' officers doesn't understand, but what you just said, the difference makers are hearing that tone in someone's voice. You guys know it. You know, oh, this is not good. Oh, there's something. I know dispatchers. When I was a cop, when I was a police officer on the street, I remember a police officer. All you heard, if you played the tape back, you just heard a noise, and they knew he was in trouble. And they knew he was in trouble. They knew what call he was on. They sent him there. And I'm like, how did you know? Because they just said that's not him. I knew. I know him, but I couldn't tell that was him. And it was a quick key. Like he tried to get his mic. He was in a big fight. Being overpowered by a couple people. Just knowing their voice was just huge. And I think that's taken for granted. Like I said, there are dispatchers that have saved firefighters' lives because they've worked with command. They picked up on maydays and calls for help. I've got the tapes. Anyway, all right. You know what? Before we run out of time here, well, let's throw this to the panel. Terry, I don't know if you saw this one. I got a question, and I know we're supposed to be sending them to hashtag FE Talk, and Tammy's been feeling them, but I get a lot of them. I got this one sent to me, and it's somebody said, okay, from the fire, they put the fire side in quotes. From the fire side, what can we do as firefighters and paramedics to help you all out? And I know they're not from the South. They didn't say y'all. They said you all out. So I guess let's end it that way. Advice from all three. We'll start with, we'll go Kelly and then Felicity and Angela. What the question again was, from the fire side, what can we do as firefighters and paramedics to help you all out in dispatch? Kelly?
So I think from the fire side, because there's a big misconception of most police dispatchers are paid by the police department or they're hired by the police department. But for the fire side, the dispatchers are just as much invested in the fire guys as they are the police guys. So make it a point to get up to your centers and have that face-to-face contact with the people. Reach out, see what they need, see what kind of training they're looking for. It's very easy for, a fire guy to come up and just have a sit down for 10, 15 minutes and say, hey, this is how we want to operate this way. These are the reasons why. Knowledge is power, and have that interaction. And I can assure you they will be more attentive to you in the long run.
Great advice. Great advice. Felicity, what could we do on the fire side and the EMS side to help you out?
I think, I'm in agreement with Kelly. I think too, is learning how to fight a fire. It's so strange, but 14 years ago, Chief, I looked at you and was like, that's it. Cause I'm not missing the mark and I want to make sure you got all of what you have. So explain to me what you're doing and what your setup is and what you're looking for. Because again, like Kelly said, knowledge is power, and it just makes you start thinking outside the box and anticipating what you may need and being ready. So just patience and knowledge and understanding that, yes, we've not been to a fire academy. We do our best and we want you guys to succeed, and we want everybody to go home. So, but yeah, I will tell you, walking away and knowing how you guys are fighting that fire when you get there helped me as a dispatcher anticipate your needs to be ready. So for sure, the knowledge is power. I second Kelly on that one.
Well, that comes again to, like Terry said, the leadership, keeping dispatch informed, not just with program changes, but with training issues. I know there were several dispatchers that used to refer to them as another Lasky second alarm and things. I heard them, they actually said it to my face, and I'm like, and that may not be an issue until, how about it, Terry, you're in Flower Mound and we have a Mayday and I'm the second chief there. I'm walking on the street and John Wright gives his Mayday, and we have two firefighters on the second floor who are on fire. And if you remember the call, T, I turned around and had nobody there. A younger dispatcher had made a mistake, and instead of sending the SEC alarm companies to the scene, sent them back to fill in. So they had double filling coming. So the only crew I had coming was Lewisville's truck, and all Farmount's guys were out getting air. And I had 2 firefighters on fire, and I'm turning around and I've got nobody there. And I've always been one, think big, think big. If I can always send them home, but I can't turn around and go, poof, there's more firefighters, because I have literally a minute or two at the most to get in and get a firefighter, save their life. I'd rather have them stacked up in the street and end up sending them home than be caught short, because there's no excuse for a fire chief or an incident commander to run out of people or not have enough people there. You've had the training, go long, think big. You can always send them home. I'm telling you, the one time in 20 years you have a Mayday, God forbid you do, and you don't have enough people there, you regret it for the rest of your life. And I was, it wasn't my fault. I'm standing going, I've got nobody to go in and get. These guys are on fire. We can't get them on the radio. It's just it's a hopeless feeling. So think big, Angela. What can we do on the fire and EMS side to help you and your?
I'm just going to piggyback on what they said. I know we've asked recently, when firefighters are doing their training out at the training field, that maybe we could sit in our training room with the radio on a different channel so that we can run those drills right along with them. And that will give us extra training as well. Or even if we have to go out to the training field to kind of just see what they're doing and get a little bit better perspective of what's going on. The second thing would be, as many times as we make mistakes, and we have to be told about those mistakes so that we can correct them and fix it and not repeat it. But we also need to know when we're doing good as well. And so we've been really good. Our chiefs and our captains have been so good about calling dispatch, saying how well we did on a call. And it's just like that extra pat on the back just makes you want to go the extra mile next time. Or I had a dispatcher this morning, first call was CPR in progress. She went through a complete 600 compressions. And I said, that's a lot. I said, you went through all 600? She said, yes, I did. And she goes, I don't think they're going to make it. And I said, well, tell me about it, and she told me, the lady said, I think my husband just died. I said, well, if that's true, then we stand a good chance. She's like, yeah, I don't think it's going to turn out well. Well, the captain called back later to tell us that they actually were able to get a pulse at the hospital. So it's those type of things that just completely made her day. Made her day.
And
part of that too,
Angela, I'm glad you brought that up, because from my standpoint, thank you goes a long way.
Yes.
And I have no problem calling somebody out when they need to be called out, but you got to give the props and just a simple, we appreciate it. Thanks for the help. But I think, and you guys would have to weigh in, but I think some follow-up sometimes, because you guys do everything that you do without any visual cues whatsoever. And so a call back, building those relationships, being able to call back up there and go, hey, just FYI, this is what happened when I got there. And this is what we saw, but I think it builds a relationship.
It does.
Also allows you guys the opportunity to fill in the blanks, understand, and that's learning thing. It's a relationship thing. And I think there's a quality of service in there, because everyone's going to benefit from that information.
I agree.
Well,
I agree with that wholeheartedly.
I know as much as I could, and I'll admit it, I could drive you guys crazy sometimes when I was out there. I always tried to say something on the radio after a good call, whether it was just a thank you or call up there and say, whoever was on there, thank you so much. And I just think some of that goes a long way, because again, like Terry said, you're one-dimensional. Is so hard trying to put that picture together. So Terry, you have anything else before we close out, buddy?
I don't. I appreciate all y'all's time, and more importantly, I appreciate what you do. And I know that for the most part, all of you, I know those that are associated with your agencies, and they hold you in the highest regard, even though sometimes we're not good at saying it. But really, not just this week because of what it is, but each and every day, and I appreciate it.
Well, for our listeners and for our viewers out there, going from left to right, we had Angela Sherrod, public safety dispatch coordinator with the Lewisville, Texas police and fire. We'll say that. We had Felicity Frankland, communication officer 2. Is that right? Is that how I'm saying it right? Okay. From the Denton County Sheriff's Office in Texas, and Kelly Hayney, communications manager from Grapevine, Texas. Ladies, thank you so much. I want you to hang on. Don't hang up when we're done here, but thank you so much for joining us. And more importantly, thank you so much for what you do. I love you guys. I love what you do. You have no idea, just in my heart, how I feel about what we do in dispatch. And it'll always be a very special place to me. I haven't been there myself a long time ago. Don't make fun, Felicity. But a long
Do
time
my
ago.
best.
Thank you so much, ladies, for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you very much.
Hey, folks, Terry and I are here every third Wednesday. We're obviously on Facebook and we're on Twitter and on the web with different things. Angela, if somebody wanted to, if there was a dispatcher listening and wanted to pick your brain or ask for advice, or, and I'll throw this, apply for any of your agencies, but they want to talk to you first, what's a good email address for them to get a hold of you?
A Sherrod, my last name. So it's ASHERROD at cityoflewisville.com.
Perfect. Felicity? Contact
You can use my name, which is incredibly long, but it's felicity.frankland, FRANKLAND at dentoncounty.com.
Perfect. Cal?
I'm Kay Hayney at grapevinetexas.gov, and that's KHAYNEY. And Grapevine, Texas is all spelled out.
And all three incredible organizations, you know, I just, and I'm not even being partial, I'm being very honest. They're great organizations. If you want a great career, you want to work with some special people, please do that. Hey, Terry, our next show is May 20th. Fire engineering always has some great Hump Day Hangouts here on Wednesdays at noon Central, 1 p.m. Eastern with some great people. In closing, Terry and I will always ask you to please keep the men and women serving our armed forces in your thoughts and prayers, as well as those right now that are handling our response to this virus, and keep them really in your thoughts, and their families, because a lot of people are going through some really bad and tough times right now and a lot of stress. And remember, we always end it with also saying never forgetting means never forgetting. Be safe. God bless you. We'll see you next time.